At 58, the woman everyone believed could endure anything finally broke. Not from fame, from love. For decades, Nicole Kidman carried the pain of others, her husband's, her family, the expectations of an entire world. For the first time, she's revealing what it truly costs to always be the strong one. Through verified accounts and quiet, unseen moments, we uncover the truth behind her silent collapse and the single admission that redefines what strength really means. Stay until the end. Because when Nicole finally said what broke her from the inside, the world listened. 4 years, she was the embodiment of grace under pressure, the actress who never raised her voice, who bore heartbreak with elegance. But behind that calm exterior, something fragile had begun to crack. After 19 years beside Keith Urban, the man she once helped rescue from addiction, the life she built around healing slowly turned into exhaustion. They called it love. Psychologists call it emotional burnout, the invisible price of being someone else's stability for too long. According to Variety, 2025, the actress is shocked, deeply hurt, and still fighting to hold on to what remains. But this isn't just about a marriage. It's about identity, the collapse of a role she's played all her life, the fixer, the savior, the calm in everyone else's chaos. And in that collapse, millions of women saw themselves. Because no matter how perfect you appear, no one can carry the weight of two hearts forever. This isn't a scandal. It's a portrait of emotional fatigue and the fragile grace that survives it. They called her unshakable. 4 years, Nicole Kidman's serenity was her armor, a quiet defiance in an industry built on spectacle. Even when her first marriage to Tom Cruise crumbled publicly, she smiled, rebuilt, and rose again. To the world, she was proof that elegance could survive anything. But in October 2025, when reports confirmed her quiet separation from Keith Urban after 19 years, that illusion shattered. According to People magazine, October 2025, Nicole was deeply hurt and tried to save what could be saved. This wasn't just another Hollywood breakup, it was the unraveling of a love the world thought was unbreakable. The shock wasn't in the divorce itself, it was in the reversal of roles. For nearly 2 decades, she had been the steady one, the emotional anchor who stood by a man in recovery, the mother who carried 2 worlds on her shoulders. But that steadiness became a prison. Psychologists call it reverse dependency, when the giver becomes so essential to another's balance that she forgets her own. Friends told Variety, 2025, she was emotionally exhausted but still trying to make it work. Even her quiet strength had limits. Because when control becomes survival, love turns into labor. What broke wasn't fame. It was faith in love, in endurance, in the belief that being strong was enough. At a red carpet event in Sydney, cameras caught something small yet devastating, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her ring. It wasn't acting, it was surrender. The woman who had saved everyone else couldn't save herself. And that's where the real story begins. Not with the breakup, but with the silence that followed. Like most stories of collapse, it began with good intentions. June 2006, just months after her quiet wedding to country star Keith Urban, Nicole stood outside a rehab center in Nashville, waiting for him to walk out sober. Hopeful. People magazine, 2006, reported she visited every day, calling it the test of true love. To the outside world, it looked noble, even romantic. But psychologists saw something else, the birth of the fixer archetype, the woman who believes she can save the man she loves. Every addict's recovery is a storm. Every healer's devotion is an anchor that, slowly, begins to drag. 4 years, she believed her love could be stronger than his pain. As his career recovered, she became the constant, the quiet center. While Keith toured and recorded, Nicole balanced motherhood, global fame, and the invisible labor of emotional caretaking. According to The Guardian, 2019, she once said, "I chose love over everything. That's who I am." But choosing love also meant choosing responsibility, a job no one applauds. Psychiatrists call it codependency fatigue, when one partner's emotional stability depends entirely on the other's. By 2022, fans began to see the wear behind her smile. The glow faded not from age, but from overextension. Privately, those close to her described her as tired of being strong. It wasn't weakness, it was depletion. The cost of carrying someone else's healing long after they'd recovered. By 2025, that cost became visible. The woman once celebrated for her composure grew quieter, withdrew from interviews, and focused only on film sets. The silence spoke louder than words. Because emotional burnout doesn't explode, it erodes quietly, gracefully, until the person who held everyone together begins to fall apart inside. As one psychologist told Psychology Today, 2025, women who play the healer role for too long forget how to ask for help. And when the world finally saw her vulnerability, they didn't judge. They empathized. For the first time, Nicole Kidman wasn't an untouchable icon, she was a mirror, reflecting every woman who has ever tried to hold on to love while losing herself. Pain names us long before fame does. The wound didn't start with the divorce, it began the day she realized that even pure love can become a burden. And that truth would echo through everything that came next. After the silence came the work. It had always been her way of surviving, turning pain into performance. In 2022, while filming Expats in Hong Kong, Nicole Kidman disappeared into a character haunted by emotional displacement. Critics at The Hollywood Reporter called it her most raw performance in a decade. But those who knew her best said it wasn't acting, it was confession. On set, she demanded minimal makeup and long, unbroken takes. Every tear was real. According to Vanity Fair, 2023, the production became a kind of therapy, a mirror for her own solitude. Through fiction, she began piecing together her reality. Recognition followed, but it felt different this time. No red carpets, no champagne applause, just the quiet nod of a director after a take, the stillness after a scene ended. Keith Urban, in interviews around 2024, praised her focus and courage, though the emotional distance between them was already visible. A journalist for Vogue wrote, "Kidman's strength no longer comes from control. It comes from surrender." And that surrender became her healing. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth, the ability to find meaning after devastation. For her, it meant rediscovering purpose not through love, but through creation. For the first time in years, Nicole wasn't performing composure. She was living it, quietly, authentically, without apology. By late 2024, new roles poured in: Special Ops, Lioness, Expats, and Practical Magic 2. Each story carried themes of resilience, loss, and rebirth, mirroring the life she was rebuilding. Her interviews grew shorter, but her gaze steadier. A crew member told Variety, "She doesn't talk about pain anymore. She embodies peace." And yet beneath that peace lay something fragile, the understanding that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to live without the illusion of control. That's what made her story universal. Because strength isn't about never breaking, it's about who you become after you do. Even grace needs somewhere to rest. The first light of recovery had arrived, soft, imperfect, but real. And soon, the world would test that light again. October 2025. The news broke quietly. Variety, People, Daily Mail all carrying the same headline. After 19 years of marriage, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban have separated. No scandal. No accusations. Just silence. But in Hollywood, silence is its own story. Within hours, tabloids dissected every second of their last public appearance, a red carpet in Sydney where she smiled and he looked away. According to Reuters, October 2025, close sources described her as shocked, blindsided, and heartbroken. The woman once celebrated for control now stood in the middle of uncertainty. It wasn't her career collapsing, it was her myth. The world turned her composure into evidence. Social media analyzed her body language frame by frame. A fan tweet with 2 million views asked, "Why is she smiling like nothing happened?" The same calmness that once inspired admiration now drew suspicion. Was she pretending? Was she free? Public empathy shifted into curiosity, the cruel kind that demands too much of someone's pain. A columnist for The Guardian wrote, "We love women who endure until they stop performing endurance." That's the paradox of modern fame. Audiences crave resilience but not recovery. And when Nicole refused to play the victim, the narrative fractured. Keith stayed silent. She disappeared. That absence became the loudest sound. By late 2025, she was photographed leaving a London studio, no makeup, dark coat, distant eyes. The image went viral. Some called it courage. Others called it collapse. But the truth was simpler: she was tired. Behind closed doors, according to People, October 2025, she was trying to find peace, not closure. Because heartbreak isn't always spectacle, sometimes it's just exhaustion. For women like her, losing love isn't only grief. It's the dismantling of identity, the caretaker, the partner, the savior, gone in one breath. And yet, beneath that loss, something new was forming. Not triumph. Not revenge. Just quiet acceptance. The realization that maybe strength isn't holding on, it's knowing when to let go. Sometimes peace begins exactly where the story ends. The world thought it was over. But for Nicole, the real reckoning was just beginning, alone, in the quiet, without cameras. When the spotlights faded, silence filled the frame. No more red carpets, no interviews, only the hum of a refrigerator in her Nashville kitchen and the echo of questions that refused to fade. After nearly 2 decades of building her life around someone else's recovery, Nicole was finally facing her own. According to Variety, late October 2025, she has paused all public appearances and returned to Nashville, spending quiet time away from filming. It wasn't retreat, it was triage. Because sometimes, the strongest thing a person can do is stop pretending to be strong. The house felt too big. The air too still. The silence, almost kind. In grief counseling terms, what she was experiencing is called emotional detachment collapse, when the walls built to contain pain finally give way. For years, she had learned to regulate everyone else's emotions: Keith's addiction, her children's transitions, the scrutiny of the public eye. Now there was no one left to regulate but herself. Friends described her days as slow, deliberate, detached. She stopped reading the press. Stopped answering agents. According to People, October 2025, she was deeply hurt but focused on finding peace. And peace, for someone who has spent a lifetime being everything to everyone, can be terrifying. It's the part of healing no one photographs, the moment you finally feel the full weight of what you've been carrying. 2 nights without sleep. She stared at her phone, at photos, text threads, the ring sitting on the counter. And then she whispered, to no one, "I tried." Therapists call this stage identity death, the loss not of love, but of the self you built around it. Nicole had lived as the rescuer for so long that peace felt foreign. And yet beneath that sorrow, something subtle began to grow. Not joy. Not clarity. Just awareness. The kind that doesn't speak, it listens. A close friend told the Sydney Morning Herald, 2025. She's learning that silence isn't punishment. It's recovery. The ocean outside her window barely moved. Neither did she. When silence becomes music, rhythm listens. This was the bottom, and in that bottom, she found what fame, love, and endurance never gave her: permission to rest. Sometimes, collapse is just another word for beginning. The night didn't end her. It reintroduced her to herself. Healing rarely looks heroic. It looks like coffee at 6 a.m. A walk with no destination. A schedule that finally belongs to no one else. According to Deadline, January 2025, Nicole agreed to return for Practical Magic 2, describing it as a story about rediscovering power through gentleness. It wasn't just a sequel, it was a metaphor. A woman who once tried to save others was finally learning how to save herself. Crew members noted she felt lighter, more grounded, more human. Gone was the rigid poise. In its place, stillness and laughter that didn't sound rehearsed. It wasn't a comeback. It was a recalibration. By late 2025, Practical Magic 2 had wrapped and entered post-production. A new chapter already unfolding. Public perception began to shift, too. At a spring 2025 red carpet, she arrived alone, serene in ivory silk, smiling like someone who had stopped needing to prove survival. Variety called it a masterclass in quiet reinvention. One fan comment under the article went viral. "She's not performing strength anymore. She just is." Millions of women shared it, a new mantra for resilience without pretense. In a culture that equates femininity with perfection, her calm imperfection became revolutionary. That's the quiet twist. Her redemption wasn't cinematic, it was psychological. Instead of running from exhaustion, she turned it into empathy. She even began speaking privately with organizations supporting women's emotional resilience in the arts. According to Harper's Bazaar, May 2025, she said, "You can love deeply and still choose peace. That's not weakness." Her calendar stayed full, her career still golden, but something fundamental had shifted, the direction of her worth. Where once she drew strength from fixing others, now she drew it from feeling whole even alone. That shift showed in everything: her voice, her laughter, her pauses. A cinematographer who worked with her in mid-2025 told The Guardian, "She's no longer chasing light. She's becoming it." She stopped performing survival and started living it. Redemption, for Nicole, was never about rebuilding the marriage. It was about reclaiming the woman who existed before it and trusting that what once broke her could also make her whole again. Peace, at last, had a face. The story of survival was complete, but its meaning was still unfolding. As October 2025 drew to a close, Nicole Kidman stood at a quiet crossroads no award could measure. Her upcoming film, Practical Magic 2, was in post-production, a story about sisters, grief, and rebirth. Headlines called it a return to form, but those who looked deeper saw something else: a full circle. Because the same woman who once carried everyone's pain was now portraying a character who finally lets herself rest. Art was no longer imitation of fame, it was imitation of recovery. And that, perhaps, was her truest legacy, proof that tenderness can be power, too. In recent interviews, she no longer spoke about endurance or control. She spoke about quiet, boundaries, grace, the strength it takes to choose gentleness in a world that rewards performance. According to Vogue, September 2025, she said, "I used to think love was about holding on. Now I think it's about knowing when to let go." That single line became both a headline and a balm, because in a culture obsessed with winning, she reminded everyone of the quiet dignity in surrender. Even her silence became meaningful, a soft rebellion against the endless demand to explain. And through that silence, Nicole became something more than a fallen star. She became a mirror, reflecting every woman who has ever been told she's too emotional, too forgiving, too much. Her legacy now isn't measured in Oscars or red carpets, but in something deeper: emotional literacy, the courage to admit exhaustion without shame. Critics began calling her the modern face of resilience. But she might not care for titles anymore. Because after decades of surviving, the real victory wasn't applause, it was peace. Greatness isn't loud. It's human. So perhaps this is how we remember her. Not as the flawless icon, but as the woman who reminded the world that even strength gets tired, and that's okay. Because love doesn't have to last forever to be real. She walked through fame, silence, and heartbreak and came out not unbroken, but complete. And maybe that's what her story asks of all of us. When the performance ends and the world grows quiet, who are you, when there's no one left to hold together but yourself? In the end, what broke her wasn't fame. It wasn't even love. It was the quiet exhaustion of always being the strong one, the woman who held everything together while quietly falling apart. At 58, Nicole Kidman finally whispered the truth. "I forgot how to be cared for." That single sentence, soft, almost broken, became a mirror for millions who live the same way. Because strength, stretched too far, becomes its own kind of wound. And sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do isn't to keep holding on, but to stop carrying what was never theirs alone. So yes, she broke. But from those cracks came light. The kind that doesn't blind, it warms. The kind that reminds us that even the most graceful hearts can get tired. And maybe that's her greatest role yet. Not the woman who survived, but the one who finally allowed herself to rest. If this story touched you, take a breath. And ask yourself, have you ever been strong for too long?